Me to make sure that I knew that I had your show to do this morning.
Okay. Thank you, Dexter. Daddy, get up! Okay. Hey, just as we're talking, a news alert came up. Polls show Biden's $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package is overwhelmingly popular, but that isn't stopping Republicans from lining up against it. Karl, you're a longtime strategist. What is their main damage? I mean, even state and local Republicans want this, right? Governors, state.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
70, and by the way, it's not just overwhelming, it's 76%, including 60% of Republicans.
Right.
But, bad polling has never stopped Republicans in Washington from doing the wrong thing. They just spent 4 years, endorsing, embossing, and following through with every bad idea that President Trump ever had. So it's no surprise. Look, they had an opportunity over the last year to do right by the American people when it comes to the pandemic and the economy. And they chose big corporations every single time. They loaded those relief packages up with as much pork as they possibly could so that there wouldn't be enough money for helping people in need, people who are worried about being evicted or not having food for their kids. Instead, they gave it to giant, corporations.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Here was my favorite quote yesterday. Liz Cheney, it's very important, especially for us as Republicans, to make clear that we aren't the party of white supremacy. To quote whatever happened to Baby Jane. But Liz,
Well, that was a very interesting press conference, by the way, because they asked Liz Cheney and Kevin McCarthy, do you think that Donald Trump should speak at CPAC?
Yeah.
And Liz Cheney said, I think he should just go away. Kevin McCarthy said, of course. And then he ended the press conference abruptly.
Yes, we just played that. We've covered that, Karl.
Okay.
How did Dexter Von Frisch let you miss a minute of the show?
He was so loud. Maybe that's what he was barking about. He was so angry.
It's like, you're missing the whole Liz Cheney, Kevin McCarthy audio. Yeah, that was classic awkward.
God.
But yeah, it goes to show you where their whole party is at. And I guess as a former campaign strategist, we should be happy, shouldn't we, Karl? I mean, you're right. They are clinging on to this loser that lost them the White House, the House, and the Senate. They're like stage 5 clingers on him, right?
If all that matters is the political prospects of Democrats, yeah, we should be happy. But I think our democracy matters too. And having this toxic bunch still involved in the workings of our democracy is not healthy. So my hope is that they get the picture at some point soon, that this guy's a weight around their neck. But if they don't, then we've got to use it for what it's worth. And that is beating them at the ballot box. I
mean, one after another, right? Alert. Results of Maricopa County's election audit are in. No evidence of fraud or vote switching was found during the 2020 general election. The audit was requested by Republicans after Biden won Arizona's largest county. I mean, but as we've been saying, Karl, this is a party that is now, I guess, immune to any facts, to any, as we were saying, all these hearings we're having, it could go away with one sentence. The election was not stolen. Let's move on.
Right. Well, the problem with facts is that they have a well-known liberal bias.
Right.
Yeah.
Much like science and the media and the alphabet, colors, shapes. The problem with real conspiracy theorists is when you present them with facts, it's only further evidence of how deep the conspiracy is to them. So you're not going to convince somebody who believes this stuff with more information and more facts.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it just makes them entrench in their positions. And the adults in the Republican Party, those people in Washington, the so-called adults that we keep hearing about, should be the ones standing up and saying, well, if you can't buy this information, I'm sorry, but we're moving on.
Yeah. I mean, here was the tweet I was talking about. Ahmed Baba tweeted about Jim Jordan because, he had to tweet right away. Donald Trump is the leader of the Republican Party, Liz. Okay. And he said, you're in a cult when you remain a stage 5 clinger to a former president who just cost your party the House, the Senate, and the White House and sanity in one term. I mean, I don't know. And who knows what he's going to say tomorrow, right? I mean,
Well,
Obviously, all his
there have been
advisors
some
are
clues.
panicked that he's going to incriminate himself in all these lawsuits. I don't think he gets he's not president yet. I think he really thinks he won and
Yeah.
something, right?
Well, March 4th is just around the corner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Look, what's interesting here is that they have been, filtering out little bits of information about what he might talk about. One of the things that his people are framing for the media is that he's going to try to position himself as the presumptive nominee for 2024. So if Republicans really want that, they should keep acting the way that they're acting. If they don't, well, they should have impeached him and not allowed him to run for office, or they can start redirecting the party's efforts now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the good thing, they could save money because, remember they have all those Hillary for prison? They could just repurpose those Trump in prison 2024. But the people would still vote for him. They're like, well, it could be like a work release program. He could still be president. I can't. I mean, okay. Am I the only one? Like, I'm not trying to be happy clappy, but the chances of him being president, first of all, he's the most historically unpopular president ever, isn't he?
Yes.
I mean, he just lost in a landslide. Their chances are pretty good he's going to be in debt or in prison by 2024. I mean, that's the gamble, I think, don't you, that the Republicans are making, that they don't need to do 14th Amendment or whatever. Because
it could even be worse.
That way they don't piss off his base, and they don't think he's going to be able to be president anyway. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that, look, it is still possible for a Republican to be elected president. We look at how close this election was just in the Electoral College math, not the numbers, but the math of the votes that got the Electoral College win for Biden. So we always have to be careful. But I would note how much more popular Biden is right now than Trump ever was as president. And that dynamic is a very different situation than the one we were in 2020.
Isn't the best part how much that must be killing him? Right.
Again,
Bink.
numbers
Bink.
numbers have a well-known liberal bias.
Yeah.
Can I just say, speaking of awesomeness, can we hear Jerry Conley just lost it yesterday, right? In these
Congressman.
Oh, your congressman, yes, in his hearings. Let's take a listen. Number 11. Sorry, Sean.
And oh, by the way, inconvenient fact. Mr. Heiss would have you believe that it was partisans on this committee, and he quoted a number of Democrats, by the way, admitted Democrats. For the record, I'm an admitted Democrat and damn proud of it. I didn't vote to overturn an election, and I will not be lectured by people who did about partisans.
Rockstar cheers.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Carl, that's the question. Are they going to pay any price for also voting to overturn democracy in this country, for being complicit in what caused the Capitol riots?
Well, they may not pay a price specifically for that, but we can make them pay a price with the legislation we pass in Congress that President Biden signs into law. That includes the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Let's get that through.
Yeah.
Let's get all of these things through. We have to accept that these people have no conscience and that they're not willing to accept when they've been wrong or when they've incited violence or anything else. So what does that leave us to do? That leaves us to advance our agenda, the things that our Democratic Congress and Democratic president were elected to do.
Travis, I believe our Representative Eagle Scout of the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Brendan Boyle, is one of the sponsors of the voting rights bill.
Yes.
And so we're going to talk to him about that later. Carl, I know there's obviously COVID relief is first. We all know that. We are in dire straits. But I would almost say that there is nothing more important after that than voting rights, because otherwise, that is all Republicans are working on, right? In every state is how to suppress the vote. I mean, so it's just I don't want Democrats
I think we're up to over 200 bills at this point.
Someone made a perfect analogy about Republicans. Something happens, Republicans say, "Who can we blame?" and Democrats say, "How can we help?" And I love that Democrats are so busy helping. I just don't want us to take our eye off the ball and the effery they're engaged in already for 2022. That's all they're working on, is how do we keep Black people from voting and people of color, so that so that Democrats never win again.
And old people and disabled people and young people. They want to make it harder for people to vote on college campuses and harder to get absentee ballots or to turn them in. They are doing everything they can. One day they'll figure out that it's just not going to work. But there are 200 plus bills already in 30 states to try and clamp down on the right of every American to cast their ballot and have it counted.
I mean, the only reason they're spazzing out about vote by mail, they never did before, as we've said a million times, Tons of states have voted by mail forever. It's only because in this election, Donald Trump chose to make it an issue, and because so many people voted by any means necessary that they're like, oh my God, vote by mail lets too many people vote. It makes it too easy to vote, right?
I'm old enough to remember watching elections and wondering if Republicans would pull out a win, waiting for the absentee ballots to be counted, because the absentee ballots often put Republicans over the top.
Right.
So, this is all about politics for them. And you're right. Donald Trump poisoned the well when it comes to something that used to help Republicans. And now they're stuck in this logical limbo where they have to, work to get rid of something that they used to rely on.
Right. Yeah. No, exactly. Karl, please thank Dexter von Frisch for us for alerting Daddy to his very...
Oh, of course. He's sitting behind me right now listening with his headphones on.
His patriotic duty this morning on the Stephanie Miller Show.